And do you treat them in the same way that your father attempted to raise you or to treat you? What's the
No.
difference in you and your dad?
And I know, ironically, you say that. When my first son was born, before my first son was born, I remember going on my knee and praying and say, God, I will never let my son think of me the way I think of my father. And that was one of the driving forces with me. So when I held my son when he was born, as a matter of fact, I think I held my son before even my wife did. And I said, I will never let you think of me how I think of my father. And I will always make sure I'm there for you. And it was an oath, and that's why probably I overcompensate a lot as a parent, because I always want to, like, it always come back in my head. Like, I'm thinking of, damn, my father wasn't this. So if my son wanted something, I make sure I was there. He asked for something, I make sure. So sometimes I may have overcompensated. Guilty, but I just never won because I really hated my father. At points in my life, I hated that man. I remember saying, if he died, I would never even go to his funeral. And I had a lot of resentment for him for everything that he did, how he treated us, how he treated my mom. I just never cared for him at all. So I
So
said I was.
tell me, what is the difference in the manner of how you conduct in raising your boys at this point? What makes you so different at this point? And why is it so important for you to want to prove them wrong?
Communication. That's the first thing. Like, I was scared shitless to even talk to my father. I saw him, I'd be like nervous, like the words can't come out. My sons can come to me about anything. I told him that, I said, anything you need, or just come talk to me. You may not get it, but let's have a conversation. They never feel intimidated at all. Ever since they were like really young, they could come to me and say, Dad, I need, okay, let's talk about it. And I always have an open door policy with them at all times. It was just one of those things that I made sure that they had access to me anytime they needed. I was there and available. That's one thing I never had, my availability. I didn't even know how to contact my father. I had no clue. Prior to my 18th birthday, I remember seeing my father like 5 or 6 times. Prior to my seeing him, have a conversation maybe twice. Because like the first time I saw him, I never spoke to him. He hit me. Next time, I don't even remember, but it was a drive-by basically. And it was in a lot of ways you may not see it then, but you look back, it affects us. No matter how you look at it, and no matter how boys would say, I hate my father, or man, that I'm cursing him out, it affects us. No matter how you want to look at it, absentee fathers in the black communities, in the hood, the ghettos, whatever, you see a lot of broken homes. We are, like you say, we are all a product of it. And you see the influence of not having a father around, it changes us in different ways, in various ways it changes us. And the book was basically like, I had to prove, especially society, wrong, that black men can be great fathers when we are
Or
allowed to do that.
black men are great fathers,
Black men
with,
are great fathers, but the
with some
perception,
exceptions to the rules.
yes,
Correct.
but the
Correct.
perception
Right.
that, like you see movies and you see white people say, oh, look at them, look at, and we get stereotyped all the time because we are looked at like the lowest of the low, and they don't take care of their kids, and look at the kids running around wild and all that stuff. And it's such a poor reference.
So Andrew, we talk about growing up black, growing up Puerto Rican, growing up Dominican. We grow up, but do we stand up as parents in teaching and educating and motivating our children to the awareness of what America is about? Family life is so important to me because I came from that broken home and that single parent. And I had sisters, 4 sisters, one who had 3 children, and she was 16 years old. It became a part of the responsibility of her siblings to raise these boys. They all had different fathers. But I became a mentor. I will not say that I became a father, but I became a mentor to three boys. Not understanding and not having the practice of love and appreciation for another soul because I didn't get it from my father. But I learned the importance of listening and educating and talking. And it's just good to know your feelings and your emotions and your desire for better life, better education for your boys. It's really important that we get across to our viewers about Black Latino fathers. Statistically, you look at the picture and you say that we are not supportive parents or a supportive parents, and that's a damn lie. There are, as it is in other races, that same kind of divide and conquer. We just don't hear about it. This book, Prove Them Wrong, means a lot. And it will mean a lot to so many brothers that have been misunderstood. So many brothers who are out here breaking their backs to educate their children and provide for their children. The thing for me, why don't you just take me down memory lane in terms of coming from Jamaica and then coming into, tell me about the survival skills that you had to go through. That's a good thought.
Well, like I said, growing up in Jamaica I was self-sufficient. Basically, I learned to do things. My grandmother told me, "Gotta learn to do things for yourself." So I grew up knowing that I had to, I didn't have to worry about surviving in the sense of I was hungry and anything like that. But I wasn't cuddled either. So basically, I learned how to cook. I was hand washing my clothes at age 12, ironing my own clothes at age 13. I had to do all these things for myself. So by the time I was 15, I knew how to cook, clean, wash.
She gave you survival skills. She gave you survival skills.
Yes. I could cut the grass with a machete, not a lawnmower, a machete. I learned all these things. So, and that's why I even cause I started high school at age 11. So I learned a lot of things really fast. You understood. So when I came to America, it was easy for me. Like I see a lot of kids probably being spoiled and all that. I'm like, that's easy. That wasn't an issue for me to go up and do something. Like the first job I had, I was doing anything they wanted me to do. Like, oh, go weed the grass. I did it. Go sweep the floor. I go do it. I didn't have an issue at all doing it. It's just that I just started going and seeing how everybody lives. Like, you know what? You gotta have better for yourself. You gotta have better for your life.
So let me ask you this question, Andrew. How old were you when you had your first child?
I was 25 years old.
25. That's relatively a young father.
Yeah, I was pretty young. I must admit. What
was the ingredients that you had encountered with being a fatherless child that you went upon to raise your child? What was that ingredients that you did or you were about to give to your first child at 25 years old? Were you working when you were 25 years old?
Yes, I always work. Crazy enough, I've always remember working, even like cutting grass. I was even in school, so I remember working. My grandparents let me paint the house, and they paid me. So at 14, I was painting the house, and they paid me a couple $dollars here and there. At 25, I had a job. I worked for Johnson & Johnson at the time, and I would go to work, come home, take care of my son. I remember, crazy enough, my wife at the time wasn't even working when my son was born, my first son. And mother's always at home taking care. I used to come home from work after working 8 to 10 hours, got my son ready for bath, change him, I did all these things. I never asked my wife to do it. He's crying, I pick him up, I feed him. Like some men would be like, oh, the boy's crying, go get him, or he needs to go bathe and all that. I did it. I remember when I was coming home late, like I work night shift sometimes. I get home 5 o'clock in the morning, and I make sure he got up to get ready to school. I did that. I didn't even wake my wife up. I just like, I'll do it, because I always wanted to make sure I was present in every aspect of it. I was there, and I tried to always make sure that he would never grow up and said you wasn't there or I asked for you and all that. But and I may have overcompensated at times and guilty, but I had that drive that I never ever wanted to be like my father. It was one of those things that really like scared the shit out of me at times. I just didn't want to do that.
Andrew, I'm going to bring this to a close, but I wanted to have this conversation with you today, man, because one, I'm a number one supporter of this book. That's number one.
I appreciate
Number
that.
two, I care a great deal about people who look like me, and maybe even a little lighter than me, and particularly young teenage mothers and fathers, that they must understand the importance of that child that they created. And I think when you go to read your book and you find out the troubles that you went through, the trials and the tribulations that you went through, you didn't have to prove yourself wrong. You proved yourself right by loving and giving and providing and keeping. So I think that this book is going to be so good for these communities to pick it up and read it. The book is, from my mouth to your ears, an amazing story of fatherhood. It's an amazing story of struggle. It's a major story of defeat. I love this book. It's never, ever, ever, ever about you. It's about family when you go to create it. Prove them wrong. In stores very soon. Andrew, give me your social media, man.
You can find me on Instagram at Drew Minott. And basically all my handles is the same thing. Twitter, Drew Minott, DREWMINOTT. So you find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. It's all Drew Minott.
Thank you very much, Drew Minott. So this has been an intriguing conversation with the brother Andrew Minott. Again, and excuse my redundancy, the book is a phenomenal book. I'm suggesting that you pick it up. You can do it you can pick up the physical book. You can buy the ebook. But the book is a fascinating book. And I'm really asking all the brothers and sisters to support this book, read this book, share this book with another brother and sister that are going through the challenges of raising their children, and particularly those single parents. So you've just met Andrew Minott, the author of the book, Prove Them Wrong. I want to thank you for your time and your consideration to view this, and ask that you become very supportive in your community.